So for those of you out there on the call, make sure you got a notepad and some paper, a pen, because you will definitely be taking some good notes tonight. Hopefully you guys enjoyed Jeff's presentation on status last week. I had a few people reply back, said that they enjoyed the training, which is good. That's the whole purpose. We want you guys to enjoy the training information to help you become better officials. That's the goal, right, Gary?
Jeff did an excellent job. I had an opportunity to talk to you midweek, Jeff, and I think I told you 3 or 4 different times, but what a well job you did with that. That was excellent work. So keep up the good work on that topic.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. That was stolen, but that's or the content was stolen. I would say
it wasn't stolen, it was shared.
Right.
That's research.
It was shared, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Very well.
research.
Research, exactly.
Yeah, that's about a better way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing with the game of basketball, it's been a long time since any of us invented anything. So everything we do has been research.
Right.
Yeah. You know, they say we all take a little something from everybody. So
Absolutely.
that's how we get better. Just take a little bit here, a little bit there, and just put it all together and make it work. Yeah. Good to see everybody on the calls tonight. Well, while we're waiting on a few more people to jump in, for those that are on the call, if you enjoyed the training by Jeff Rutledge last week on status, maybe put something in the chat, let them know about the training presentation he taught last week on status.
We can even answer some questions if people have a couple
Yes.
real quick questions before the
Because
presentation.
we got about a couple of minutes before we get going. So anybody have a question, you can put it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask your question. While you have the veterans on the call that can answer your questions, definitely feel free to do so before we get started.
Good evening. Yes, I had a quick question regarding the file reporting.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
I'm Johnny Arrington.
Okay. And where are you from, Johnny?
I'm from Chicago,
Okay.
suburbs.
Right. And what was your question?
I just had a question regarding file reporting and the numbers. I don't have my book yet, so I'm trying to read the rules in the little bits that I can and watch as much as I can online. But just the numbers really was what I was trying to get clarity on, like how to report the different numbers.
Okay. Well, Jeff, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, it's simple. I think TJ may go through a little bit of that today. So I don't want to take too much of his thunder, but we go from the right hand to the left hand. We do it just how the person is viewing it that we're reporting to, because we're actually reporting to someone at the table, and we're giving the right hand is the first digit, the left hand is the second digit. If there's 2 digits, if there's 1 digit, you're supposed to give one hand. Sometimes we give the left, but that's a state preference or whatever. If you have it, and then you say the full number: 13, 34, 25, whatever. And just so you know, especially for newer officials, at our level, we don't go more than 5 digits or the number 5 on either number. Other levels do different. They go higher numbers. It's an illegal jersey if you go above that, and that's how I basically report it. You be clear and concise and use your voice so that they can hear you. It's not a secret that you are reporting that file. So don't make it where a lot of new officials where they don't say anything or they barely can be heard. You want to be heard. So I hope that answers your question, or is there any aspect of that I'm not covering?
A little bit. I'm wondering at what level, because I was reading something or watching something where it said if it's 1 through 5, it's on the right hand. If it's 5 through 10, it's the right hand plus whatever the number is on the left hand. And then if it's 10 through 15, it's 10 is a closed fist. at any rate, I was just wondering, like, is that at the high school level or is that something different? That method of
It's pretty much at all levels.
Okay.
Again, as I said, the high school is simple because we don't have no more than 1 through 5 or 0 through 5 on either number. So we don't go like 35, like we'll never have a 36. We'll never have a 61 in our rules. So it's like 25, 23, 15, 14. And the right hand is the first digit. The other hand is the second digit if there's 2. And if there's 1, I think you're actually supposed to give the right hand. But as long as you're clear and concise and use your voice, but you say the number. And we used to say it a different way, but say 13, 14, 15, don't say 1, 5, 1, 2.
Okay.
Say the full number that you're saying. But again, this is not a secret. When you're reporting a foul, you need to be clear and concise, because I'm gonna tell you right now, if you are not clear and concise, and also we want to keep our hands within from on our face. I don't know if you can see my camera, but I don't want to have my hands right in front of my face. I want to have them off to the side. We kind of have a box that we kind of put it in. And the reason we do that, so it can be clear. So if we cannot be heard, they can see what our mechanic or our signal is.
Okay. Thank you for that.
I hope that answered. And then we'll cover some of that as we go on as well. So don't feel bad. That's a very good question, because that might be something you don't know anything about as a first-year official.
So I'm Nagar, I'm from Champaign. I wanted to just add something about the numbers, which is interesting to me, that I was trained by FIBA rules, and in FIBA we have all sort of numbers. And what we do is that we go by, if there's anything which is over 20, we go by, it will be like this, 60. Instead of showing it like that, it's 60, and then 1 will be 1.
Well,
So-
in high school, we will not have a number over. We will not have any 6, 7, 8, 9 numbers. And then we always are. And then if I didn't make this clear, I'm glad you pointed that out. We always show the palm of our hand.
Mhm.
So if at 55, you see the palm of my hands. If it's 15, you see the palm of my hands. We don't flip numbers or flip our hands. It just doesn't look good. You show you're showing strength, and I could even show some other stuff as we get on, but like I even throw it at them, kind of like 15, like I'm projecting my arms out, the number, not just putting it up. It's just another way to show strength. Believe it or not, coaches and players look at this. You might think they don't look at it. They actually pay attention to this, because how you report the number can show confidence in your call, or can show maybe some not so confidence in your call. I hate to say weakness, but it might show that you're not as confident. So that whole procedure is actually talked about. TJ is going to talk a lot about that, I'm sure. So we'll, we'll kind of cover that over our meetings as well. So I hope that answers the question.
And another thing about that too is just the fact that remember, sometimes you have assistant coaches that may be taking statistics, so they're also watching you as you're reporting, not just the people at the scores table. So it's really important that that you're concise with your numbers. 15, 23, whatever it may be, 55, or 5 or 1 or 0, whatever it may be. Make sure that you're concise and loud and clear with it, because again, I think most gyms may be a little noisy, so they may not hear you clearly, but they want to be able to read your numbers. So again, we kind of use an imaginary box kind of within the top of the head to the shoulders area, and we kind of use that. So as you see, my hands are kind of like right over my shoulder. So it's that way, but that way they can see my face, they can read my lips. 13, 23, 25, or whatever the case may be. So that way they can understand what you're saying.
Guys, anytime that we can use our voice or voice inflection in reporting files to the table, it gives the call, it exudes confidence in the call that you just made at the table. I'm not saying that you have to sell every single file call. What I am saying is use your voice as much as possible to give a lot of credit to the call that you just made.
Because it's our time to shine. That's literally our time to shine. And I know we have this saying in officiating, we don't want to be seen. We don't want people to know who we are. But this is an area of the game that we got to be known because they sometimes judge us based off of our confidence. If we go there and we call a foul and we kind of like 13, that tells something different. If I go 13, blue, hold, out of bounds, 2 shots, that all projects a
Correct.
certain level of confidence. And the bigger the gyms, the more people, the more you probably have to use your voice in many cases to be heard. So,
Does that answer your question? Okay, great. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the call tonight. We are excited that you guys are here with us. We are definitely looking forward to making sure that you get all of the training information that you need to be as successful as an official. My name is Clarence Cooper. I am one of the IHSA clinicians on the call tonight. I also have the privilege and the honor of sharing the call with a couple of colleagues of mine, and I'll introduce them. Hold on 1 second. There we go. All right, Gary Gustafson, who's our IHSA head interpreter and coordinator of officials. Jeff Rutledge, who's a state certified clinician, 3-time state final basketball official, and also NCAA men's basketball official. And Tracy Carruthers, who's also a 3-time state basketball official and one of the observers for Chicago Public School. I myself am the coordinator of officials for Chicago Public Schools, and responsible for training and assigning games and things along that line. So we just wanted to take this opportunity to say again, thank you for participating on the call. Hopefully you will gain a lot of information and knowledge that can help you enhance your officiating skills and knowledge so that you can be as successful as possible in your officiating career. Tonight, these are a couple of our goals that we're just trying to accomplish. We want to first and foremost, implement the vision of our head clinician, Gary Gustafson. I apologize for saying it. It gets a tongue twister. We want to provide.
It took me 15 years to learn how to say that.
We also want to provide professional training to all of our basketball officials. We want to make sure that we are teaching and enforcing the National Federation rules for signals and mechanics, and as well as positioning, which I know TJ is going to cover all of those various topics in different areas tonight. And we want to help our officials meet and complete all of IHSA requirements. And I know Jeff is going to talk about that in just a minute real quickly, and then we'll get into our presentation. But most importantly, we want to make sure that all of our officials have the knowledge and skills and tools to be successful basketball officials, and make sure that all of the games are being officiated consistently throughout the state of Illinois. So at this time, real quick, what I'll do is pass it over to Gary. If you want to say a few words to our audience, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, I think I pretty much said a whole lot last week, but one of the first questions I have tonight is, how many people do we have on the call tonight, Clarence?
We are at right now 45. We had 102 registered though.
45 and 102. Okay.
So some of them are probably trickling in a little late, coming off home from work or what have you. So
sure,
trickling in. Mm-hmm.
And our target range, age, experience wise, is 1 through 5. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So we're starting from the kind of like the beginning of a lot of people's careers, and there's not a whole lot of mistakes that we have to change because they have not been around to make a lot of mistakes. So what we're going to share, if everyone has got a pen and a pad, you are going to get system overload in the realm of knowledge from all of us. We have some people here on this call and clinicians that have been places where you as officials have not been yet, and we've had some accomplishments by some of the people on this call that you haven't had the opportunity to be involved with yet. But we are here to teach you the correct way of doing things. We're going to be doing things the same way as the NFHS and IAABO. They match up very well together. And I think TJ can probably talk on that topic a little later going forward. But But we welcome all of you here tonight, and no question is too silly of a question. So don't be afraid to ask a question. So with that, let's move forward from here, and I'll be quiet.
All right,
Maybe.
Yeah, thank you. Jeff is going to talk real quick because we had a few people had questions about receiving clinic credit. So Jeff, if you want to talk about that as well.
Yes, I wanted to address this. We're getting a lot of questions about with these trainings about clinic credit. First off, since we have 1 to 5 year officials and some of you who have been officiating some of you that are brand new would probably ask questions about there being clinic credit for this. We want to inform you that at this particular time, we are not offering clinic credit. We cannot offer clinic credit for these meetings that we're having in August, but we may at a later date have a clinic or some kind of online portion of a clinic. For those that know that are in their first year, that once you've signed up through the Illinois High School Association and got your license, you are considered, I believe, on probation for that first year. And then you, in order for your next year to not be suspended, you must attend a clinic within that first year. And again, I think it's even a multi-sport. You can attend different sports. So it doesn't mean that you have to attend basketball if, let's say, you're doing a fall sport like football or soccer or volleyball or something like that. But you must attend a clinic within the first year. But the reason also we are not offering clinic credit at this time, there's a procedure that we have to follow through the Illinois High School Association, in which we have to report that we're having a clinic. And if we do a clinic, we got really kind of 3 options. We can do one in person, which is probably not the likely option for most of everybody here. We can do one online of multiple days, which has a little bit more restriction, or we can do a one day clinic where we can literally, but it has to be about 4 to 5 hours clinic time, and you have to attend the entire clinic. So you cannot like say, I can only be there like we do from noon to 5 o'clock. You can't say, oh, well, I got to leave at 3 o'clock. You have to attend the entire time of the clinic. And that's what we're trying to work out. So if we do a multi-day clinic, the IHSA or the person over the official department has kind of started requiring us to make certain days that clinic credit, and you must attend those days. That's probably not the one we're going to want to do because it hamstrings people to that they have to show up to the specific days, and then we wouldn't have the option. So we will probably at some point offer clinic credit as clinicians. We just have to find out our schedule, and we may even do a survey to see if there's a time that makes sense for everybody in the fall or sometime before the season. But otherwise, we're not offering it at this time. But stay tuned. We are going to offer, and we are going to add some meetings as the fall goes on as well, and we'll try to figure out. That may not be associated with the clinic, but I just wanted to let everybody know we are in the works of trying to develop a clinic, but we have to cover some things in those clinics too. It's not just like you just show up for 4 hours or 5 hours. You literally we have to cover specific topics in order to get clinic credit, and you have to be online, and you have to submit your IHSA number and name and everything to us so that we can report that to the IHSA so you could get clinic credit. And just a last little note for the future officials or other officials who are not first-year officials, attending clinics every year goes towards your PowerPoint rating, which is if you ever have consideration for postseason, that is another thing that will be a benefit. But please don't do clinics just because of that reason. Do clinics because you want to get better and learn, and because there's going to be stuff all the time that we're going over, new rules every year. I mean, we have some new rules that are going to actually kind of highlight some things that we have been doing for years, but really, and especially with the shot clock coming in. So don't just be checking a box. Don't be that official. Be official that's trying to learn something, because we're here to teach you and to give you more information. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you for your time, guys, and Clarence, take it away.
All right, great. Real quick, we got a quick poll, just a few questions. We asked that you guys complete the poll for us. First one is, which area of Illinois are you from? If you can let us know, that'll be great. Select which area you're from or the nearest area based on the choices that are available for question 1. Question 2, which levels of basketball have you officiated? Recreational, elementary, high school, college, professional. Our third question is, what's the highest level of basketball officiating you would like to accomplish? So what's your goals of officiating? It could be recreational, high school, elementary, professional, college, whatever it may be. And then if you're a part of an association, if you can let us know what association you're a part of, if any. And then the last question is, if you know who's responsible for teaching the officials in your association, if you can let us know who that person is, that would be great as well. For those of you that do know who that individual is, or if it's a group of people, it can be a group of people as well. All right. So again, got just 5 quick questions that you can answer. So far, it looks like we have about 33% from Chicago, 21% from, well, it keeps fluctuating, but 18 to 21% from suburban Chicago area, approximately 4% from northern area, approximately 13% from the southern area, approximately 24% from the central area of Illinois. No one from eastern or western is on here so far. So that's good. That's good. Which levels of basketball have you officiated? 32% saying recreational, 28% saying elementary, and 40% saying high school. Okay, that's good. And one person said college. Okay, that's good. Was that you, Jeff?
No, that's not me. That's not me. I haven't answered.
Number 3, what's the highest level of basketball you officiated? 7% said elementary, 37% saying high school, 33% saying college, and 22% saying professional level. Okay. And we got some short answers to find out who the individuals are, or what associations they belong to first, I'm sorry, and then the individuals that who are responsible for teaching officials in that area. So great. Thank you so much for taking the poll. That's great information for us to gather and reduce some use for some research purposes. Because again, we're trying to expand this. So if you know of any other officials too that could probably take advantage of this training or these types of trainings, feel free to invite them out or shoot me an email. We can add them to our email list, because again, we're trying to make this thing grow as big as we possibly can. Because as we all know, the more training we get, the better off we can be as officials. All right. So thank you once again for completing the poll. We'll take that and take that information back and make sure we use that to our advantage. All right. So next we have our guest speaker, TJ Halliday from IAABO. He's one of the, like I said earlier, and I'm just being honest, one of the best speakers I've ever heard present in this officiating world. He's the Director of Development and Learning for IAABO. He's been a member of IAABO since 1985 and one of the co-coordinators of interpreters for IAABO. He's 36 years of officiating in the Maine High School Championship games, 20 years of officiating Division III college basketball, 25 years of officiating postseason tournaments for the state championship games in Maine, I think the Maine area. Currently the Maine coordinator of officials. So he's the Gary, the person like Gary in Maine. So he's responsible for training the officials in Maine and making sure that they're doing everything the right way, watching hundreds and hours of video and, helping everybody get better. And he's also the site supervisor for the Maine postseason tournaments. One thing I forgot to add on here, he's actually on the National Federation Committee for basketball. So he helps with the interpretation of rules and things like that for basketball for the National Federation. So right now I want to turn it over to TJ Halliday.
Thank you very much, Clarence. I want to thank Clarence and Jeff and Gary for having me on tonight. I gotta be honest with you, I'm really impressed that there are people, I call them rules nerds like us, that are on August 11th on a nice sunny summer afternoon and evening, that we're here talking basketball. And it gets me really excited. I'm glad to be here and glad to be part of it. You guys should be commended. You're in rarefied air. You really care about our game. If you're on this call tonight, and I hope I give you some information that will help you further your career. Now, I think some of these high-level officials, you talk about Gary, Clarence, and Jeff, they're all high-level officials. I think they'll tell you that if you master the rules and you go out and have good signals, good procedures, that you know what, that's only part of the equation. That we're in an information age, and part of what we do as basketball officials is communicate. And if you're not effective communicator, that's going to be the thing that holds you back. And we hope tonight's presentation will give you some ideas on how you can be a good partner, how you can communicate effectively with not only your partners, but the players, the coaches, the scorers tables, and try to be one of those people that people want you to, when you show up in the gym, they want you there. They're excited you're there because you're going to communicate effectively. So we can't impress upon you enough about those things. Again, I want to thank Clarence for the introduction. I am the Director of Learning and Development for IAABO, also on the National Federation Rules Committee. Everything you see tonight is supported by the National Federation. IAABO and the Federation work very close together to try to be aligned. We're trying to make sure our manuals are pretty well aligned. If there is something that deviates, if I catch you on something, I'll make sure you know that. I know your state association has input on those kind of things as well, and I'm sure Jeff and Clarence can clarify anything I cover that you might not be doing in Illinois. Tonight's session going to be real straightforward. We want to teach you how to communicate when you start play. How do you effectively start the game, whether it be a jump ball, throw in, a free throw? We're going to talk about how you stop play. How do you communicate when you decide to blow the whistle, stop the play for a foul, violation, or held ball? Then we're going to have a brief summary on how you should approach your signaling. There's a very concentrated approach, and I got to be honest, throughout the country as I watch the game of basketball, a lot of officials really are not taking a proper approach to signaling, and we're going to talk about that. And we'll end the evening by just talking about how to communicate with players and coaches and wrap up that way. Before we get started, you're going to see in this presentation a title to every slide, and there's going to be a number on that slide. That number correlates to the IAABO manual. If you're not an IAABO member, you probably won't understand what those numbers are. We got a brand new manual coming out this year. It's a fantastic document. We encourage you to be members. I know we got a couple of members on here. If you're a member of IAABO, you're going to get this instruction manual. And we like to think it's one of the most powerful officiating document in the world. It's got every rule covered by topic. It's got everything you could ever conceive as far as crew of two, crew of three, all in a nice concentrated document. It reads like a book. Everything builds on one another, and there's no more jumping around. I mean, if you go to the rules book or the case book or the manuals, sometimes you got to bounce around to find the answer. This is basically basketball for dummies. It's put in a nice format, and we can't encourage you enough to join the association and get that document. Without further ado, let's talk about starting play. Let's start off with our typical starting play, which is jump ball procedures. Now, we know both crew of two, crew of three, we have this format, whether we start the play, we have the referee facing the table, we have the umpires facing away from the table. Now, there's actually a strategy in getting play started effectively. Now, what we got to do is we got to make sure our partners verify that the correct numbers of players in the court. This is a common theme throughout our manual. If you officiate any number of years, I'll be surprised if you don't have a situation where you have a game where you look at it on the court and geez, we don't have 5-on-5. That's an officiating mistake. Sometimes we get so preoccupied with other things that we don't really think about some of the basics, and we cannot impress upon you enough. Before you put the ball in play, whether it's a jump ball, free throw, or throw in, you're making eye contact with your partners, you're looking at the players, you're making sure you get 5-on-5. Now, you check with the table. They're going to want one starting the clock, right? Check with the table, make sure they're ready. You check with the partners, whether it be crew of two, crew of three. You look at partner, you all set, make sure you get that confirmation. Then you look to the captains. You had speaking captains in the pregame. Captains, you all set. They're going to verify that their team's ready to go. You're going to indicate each team's baskets and verbally communicate. Blue's heading this way, white's going this way. Then you're going to sound the whistle and then step into that circle and execute an accurate toss. Now this year, we actually made a decision to You know, the jump ball restrictions, if you read our jump ball restrictions, it says they start when the official is ready to play. We actually came up with a plan. So you know what? When you step into that circle, things are begin at this point. Jump ball restriction begin at this point. You can't move on or around the circle before that ball is tossed. And once that ball is tossed, you can't break the plane of that center circle with a foot, and you can't move into an occupied spot. And one thing we did with the rules this year, we actually clarified what an occupied spot means. All the spots on the floor, whether they're imaginary, visible, or imaginary, not visible, are 3 feet deep. Whether it be a free throw lane or a center circle around the court, they're all 3 feet deep, and those restrictions only apply to that 3-foot space around the circle. So if you understand that, you're going to start your game off effectively. We've seen violations ruled when players move behind opponents when they're more than 3 feet away. So we have to understand those little nuances of those kind of things. And one of the rules changes you'll see coming out in your rule book this year, all the rules changes that come out in the Federation rule book, they're in kind of a gray text, which is kind of neat. That's one of the things you'll see in your gray text in Rule 6.3 as far as the jump ball restrictions. Very important to start the game that way. Let's talk about throw-in procedures. This is going to be probably the most you're going to resume play is going to be through throw-ins. We have several throw-ins throughout the course of the season. This year, unless you've been living under a rock, we've got a big, huge rules change this year. We're going to use the 3-point arc to determine how the throw-in spots are going to be determined this year in both the front court and the back court. So it doesn't matter where you're administering the throw-in. If you're administering a throw-in the front court and the back court, if the stoppage happens inside that 3-point line, the throw-ins are going to be in line. We're going to use basket line as that determining factor, but you're going to be putting everything on the end line for all those stoppages. If the stoppage is outside the 3-point arc, they're going to go to the sidelines. And again, that's front court and back court. It doesn't sound like much now, but there's some actually awkward situations where you're going to be moving the ball forward and backward quite a bit of ways from where the stoppage occurred. So keep that in mind. Any stoppage that creates those throw-ins is going to be based on those spots. Now, keep in mind that we didn't change the rules on like double fouls and timeouts and inadvertent whistles. Those are points of interruption type plays. Those are going to be based on ball location. All the other stoppages are based on where the infraction occurs. So keep that in mind as well. So based on ball location or where the infraction occurred is going to dictate those throw-in spots. And we'd be glad to take questions on that later in the program. Now, when it comes time to actually administering a throw-in, we want you to sweep the floor before you put the ball in play. What does that mean? Well, sweeping the floor means glance the table, make sure the substitutes aren't coming in. The last thing you want is to be in the process of putting the ball in play and having that horn sound, then you have to negotiate that whole thing. Sometimes that can be a technical foul situation. So check with the table, make sure there's no one there. We definitely don't want coaches running up the sideline, getting subs in late, that kind of thing. So just make sure you check the table, beckon in as needed. The next thing you want to do, verify that both teams have correct players on the court. You're going to see that a lot tonight. Then make eye contact with your partners. If you master one thing to save yourself from embarrassment in this game, is always make eye contact with your partners. Especially if you're not the one putting the ball in play, make sure you're making eye contact, make sure you're ready. You want to make sure everybody's ready to go when that ball gets put in play. And then apply the boxing in technique. What that means, say it's a crew of 2, you have to put all the players between both partners. If it's a crew of 3, we talk a lot about that wide triangle. We want to make sure all the players are within that triangle or within that box to make sure we have everything covered before we put the ball in play. Very important concept. All right, here's a throw administration. Communication. Whether it be an end line throw in or a designated spot, this information is not a secret. When you think about a pressing situation, you've got both teams near the end line, and we have a situation where we're going to be able to move along, or it could be a designated spot. That information matters to both teams. That information impacts strategy for both teams. Verbalize it. You can move or designated spot. That's going to impact the strategy for both the offense and the defense. Now, put the whistle in the mouth, back away, raise your arm further from the thrower in, okay? Try to use the outside arm, probably closest to the boundary line. Now that's going to be your start the clock signal. Hand or bounce, whatever is appropriate for that particular situation. You can bounce along the sidelines and the end lines, and we're going to talk about that a second. Front court throw-ins in Federation. This is a difference. In Federation, you have to handle the end line on front court. In IAABO, we actually allow bouncing along the front court as well. Step away from the thrower in and begin your count. Okay. The reason we step away is we want to get a good angle on all the players close to us in our area. And then lastly, when the throw in is completed, when the ball is legally touched on the court, we're going to start the clock by dropping that arm. That's the throw in procedure. Now, if the throw in follows a timeout or unusual delay, there's an actually resuming play procedure that we do. And what we do is we sound the whistle. We state the jersey color. In this case, it's the team in the black jersey. So we're going to verbalize the word black. Then we're going to signal direction. And then we're going to administer the throw and put the ball in play. The reason we do that, if you officiate long enough, you will have situations where teams run this misdirection play. We have to do this every time to communicate to the players the proper direction. You'll see it every once in a while. You'll see teams set up their offense on the wrong end of the court and then go long and get an easy layup. We understand it, we know it, but we're going to actually do this procedure every time so both teams are fairly communicated with what direction we're actually going. If they fall for that misdirection play, then well, that's something they have to live with. But we're going to try to communicate effectively what direction we're going. Now, on front court throw-ins, I want you to look at this top screen up here at the top here. If you got to throw it on the end line, you have the option, whether it be crew 2 or crew 3, of being outside or inside that thrower, whatever is most effective for you. If you're a tall person, you might be able to go on the outside and be able to see the lane perfectly clear. I'm short, I'm only 5'9", so I often go inside so I can get a look at the lane. Now, this diagram's a little bit inaccurate that we don't really want you outside that 3-point arc. We don't want you pinned to the lane. We don't want you really blocked off because this is part of your primary coverage area is this lane. We really want you to have a look at this area in the lane while you make a throw in. You've got to make that determination what's best for you. So you can hand or bounce those players in crew of 3. In IAABO, you can bounce along the end line. In Federation, you're going to hand this throw in. All right. Now, look at this sideline throw in. You have a lead bouncing to the throw on the sideline. This is supported by both manuals, okay? Whether it be crew of 2, that happens to be crew of 2, or crew of 3, if the ball is below free throw line extended, that throw in can be administered by the lead. Okay, you can bounce up the sideline. Now look down to the bottom here. The lead bounces to the thrower in. All they have to do is bounce it, and then the trail is going to assume the 5-second count and the starting of the clock. In the crew of 2, that lead is going to assume the 5-second count and the start of the clock. So it depends on what crew you're in and that kind of thing. But you can bounce up the sideline below free throw line extended. All right, front court throw-ins. This is a crew of 2 on the top of the screen. Often, when you have a crew of 2, your trail is working the arc, okay? The ball is above free throw line, working the arc, the ball scoots out of bounds. Typically, this is something you should cover in pregame, but we support that trail, making the ruling if it's above free throw line extended and coming across and making that throw in. And I'll double check with Clarence and Jeff after this to make sure it's the same way. Actually, Clarence, Jeff, you guys want to pipe in on this one? How do you guys do this in Illinois in crew of 2?
Jeff, go ahead.
We pretty much do it the same way. Gary
Okay.
might want to touch on that a little bit, but Illinois definitely we can hand or bounce as well.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
On the end line. And the reason now Gary can clarify this: we do not want you bouncing across the court, across the lane. I mean, in that situation, you go over to that side of the court that you're on. But if you're on that side of the court, you can bounce. I believe if we're going long, I think they still want us to hand. Gary can clarify this if we are in the front court. So, but
I'll
that's
cover
just
those backcourts in a minute. The backcourt ones are. There's going to be a manual change on those. You guys can decide how you want to handle it. But it sounds like in Illinois, crew of 2 on a trail, that trail can come over and take that ruling on the sideline and administer that throw in.
Yes.
All right, good, very good. All right, so we make sure you guys are covered on that. Let's talk about backcourt real quick. when there's no defensive pressure, this is something that is changed in the manual for both Federation and for the IAABO this year. If there is no defensive pressure, and we literally mean no defensive pressure, look at this picture here. There is no defender in the backcourt. If the ball goes out of bounds and the trail's on this side, they may bounce across the backcourt, the back for the lane here. That's brand new this season. The Federation approved it. Here's a video of it. You'll see the ball scoots out of bounds, gets knocked out of bounds. The crew's in good position. There is no backcourt pressure. So the young lady just bounces across the lane and puts that in play. Okay, so that's okay. So Gary, do you want to comment on that? Is that something you're going to be support of the Federation, or is Illinois going to do something a little different this year? Gary's Gary there. Okay,
Gary.
maybe we'll get that a little
Sorry,
later.
I was muted there.
All right.
But that's going to be that throw-in situation that you just explained, TJ. That's something that I most likely is going to have to be approved by the IHSA.
Okay.
It seems to me like it's been a college women's mechanic for the last 4 or 5 years, maybe that throw-in situation there. But I don't see why it would not be approved by the IHSA. But at this moment, don't know that it is.
Okay. So you guys can follow up on that. Make sure you let people know how that works out. Very good. All right. Now let's talk about free throw procedures. This is something that I want to drive home this concept really quickly. Sometimes when we have free throw mistakes, we often blame the administering official. Well, we really want to emphasize this is a crew time. Whether you're the trail or center trail and a crew of 3, everybody's got to stay awake and make sure we administer to the proper people, make sure people are lined up properly. This is not a time to take a mental vacation. The lead should step in the middle of the lane here and communicate. How many free throws we have? Communicate to the free thrower. How many is it? 2? Is it after a goal when we have 1? Is it 3? Whatever it might be. Now they bounce the ball, the thrower in, the free thrower. They bounce it, they come back and take their position on the end line, probably 4 to 6 feet away. And they have responsibility for the nearer lane line and the opposite 3 spaces. All right. If depending on if it's a crew of 2 or crew of 3, the other officials have responsibilities as well. Now, new this year, this is brand new. This is Federation and IAABO. We put in a new procedure where once the ball is put in play, we're going to have the lead. We're going to have the lead administer the free throw, and as they back out of the lane, they're going to signal the scorer's table how many free throws we just told the free throw should we have. This is going to be our last-ditch effort to make sure we're not creating a correctable error situation. We're not putting the players at a disadvantage by miscommunicating what's going on. We're going to communicate at the table. That's going to give them a chance to, hey, wait a minute. This is only 1 free throw. You're saying 2, or this is 3. Or whatever the mistake, they can blow the horn and say, wait a minute. You guys aren't communicating what you just told us is happening. The scoreboard says something different. So brand new mechanic this year for the 2025-26 season. So the lead's going to take care of that responsibility. Now let's talk about the other officials in this situation. In a crew of 3, it's the center official that has the free throw shooter and the opposite 2. If it's a crew of 2, it would be the trail. So you have those free throws. Once the lead communicates and bounces to the thrower, you're now going to signal to the table how many free throws there are. And once the free throw is released, you're going to close down toward the end line, put the start the clock signal in the air. If the free throw goes in, you just drop. But if the free throw misses, you're going to wait for that ball to be legally touched and then start play. So that's how to effectively start play, whether it be a jump ball, free throw, throw in. And it sounds like you folks in Illinois have a couple of things to worry about as far as what the ISHS is going to do as far as some of those procedures. And I'm sure they'll get back to you at a later date when they make those decisions. Let's move into stopping play. Site of foul, site of violations, site of held ball. This to me is where effective officials really thrive. How do you stop play and communicate what just happened? If you officiate long enough, I almost guarantee you will officiate with someone who doesn't communicate well. I was at a game a few years ago, and there's a low post play, and two players were jockeying for position, and the lead official ruled a foul, and he stepped toward the two players, and he talked to the two players. Nobody in the gym knew what he had. So the entire gym stops, and we all watched him jog to the reporting area and then report the foul. So for about 20 seconds, nobody knew what was going on. If you're effective, you'll know immediately what's going on, and you'll know how to set up that next play. Off officials, whether they be center or trail or wherever you are, you can't help the ruling officials if you don't communicate effectively. And we're going to go through some of those procedures right now. Let's talk about site of violation. First and foremost, have a nice crisp stop the clock signal. Nice and straight, blow the whistle and simultaneously stop the clock. Very important communication. Make eye contact with your partner. Why is that so important? We want to make sure we don't have conflicting rulings. Okay, I make eye contact, I look, I make sure no one else has gotten that signal. So now I feel free, I can signal. Once I know that, I'm going to signal a type of violation. This happens to be a traveling violation. It could be out of bounds, could be double dribble, whatever it might be. Then I want to verbally state the color. If this is an out of bounds violation, you need to verbally state the color. Okay, let the teams know who's receiving the basketball. Then you're going to end the sequence by indicating the throw-in spot. Now, I say a lot of violations that you rule, you've got to communicate to your partner, where does the throw-in go? We got a brand new rule this year that's going to use that 3-point arc. This communication is going to be vital. So if we don't communicate effectively, we could put the ball in the wrong place, and that could impact the balance of fairness between the offense and defense. We want to make sure that's important. Now, if possible, your signaling, your ideal signaling is to use the same arm to stop the clock, signal the violation, and then signal direction, then indicate the spot. So if I'm right-handed, I'm going that way, I'm going to signal this way. Now, for those people who really want to get advanced, if I was going that way, I can use my left arm to signal. That way, you're not signaling across the body, and you can do everything with the same arm. That's the ideal. The most important thing when signaling is making sure you don't turn your back to the players. If you have to go across your body and you keep on looking at the players, I think you've done something really important, because we've seen so many times where people turn their head and they're not looking at the players and something goes wrong. That's when an elbow happens, a punch happens, and we don't see it. We're three feet from it, and everybody wants to know how you can be that close to something and not see it. So all these procedures require us to keep looking at the players while we're signaling. When you're signaling out of bounds, you don't want to turn your head and turn you away from the players. Find ways to signal while you keep focused. All right, here's the violation signals. Stopping the clock, nice and crisp, straight up. Elbow should not be bent. Here's a traveling signal. Rotate 3 times, one over the other, clench fists. Okay. Illegal dribble. It's basically using both hands, palms open, facing down. Simulate a dribble. Okay. Motion should be done around 3 times. Kicking violation. If you've ever seen the Rockettes, they do pretty well with this. Just raise one leg, bend the knee, swing the foot outward. Okay. That's a really easy one. 3 seconds. If you're a bowler, you should be good at this. You should be facing up the lane, and it's just an underhanded motion. You can curl your thumb and your index finger into a circle, and then just use those 3 fingers, kind of like in a bowling motion. Carrying and palming. This is open palm, just folding it over. Okay. This only needs to be done once. Okay. This is just the bent elbow and folding it over. Okay. This is different than backcourt. Backcourt is 1 finger bouncing around between front court and back court. This is also the first to touch violation. We have those new violations now. First to touch, point in bounds, point out of bounds, point in bounds. That way you're actually making that motion. Throw in violation. All you're doing is stopping the clock, throw in violation, and you point to indicate the spot where it occurred. 5-second closely guarded, a little bit higher than shoulder height right there. Okay, outside the face. And 10-second violation, same thing with 10 fingers. All right, delayed violation. This is also important for that first to touch. We have it with free throw, but if you see a potential violation, This is our delayed violation withheld whistle signal. All this means is, you know what? There's a potential violation. I'm going to observe this play, and if violation materializes, then I'll sound the whistle and signal the appropriate infraction. So that's your delayed violation withheld whistle signal. Excessively sexually swinging the elbows. It is basically arm bent, swinging that arm once. Make sure no one's around you when you do it. We don't want to cause injury. And that's how to do that. Let's talk about the held ball. This changed a few years ago. We now stop the clock first with an open palm, and then we kind of put our thumbs out and raise them toward the ceiling, and that's signaling a held ball. Okay, there's a really important procedure here. Once you have a held ball, I cannot impress upon you enough, there's an actual real strategy on how we get the information for the AP arrow. Okay, the official closest to the play stays focused on the players. Okay, if they feel like there's going to be an altercation, step in and be a presence. Don't allow something to materialize. To help people get up calmly and try to keep order and that kind of thing. The non-ruling official, okay, whether it be crew or 2, crew or 3, should remain back, freeze their eyes on the other players, be prepared to help out if needed. If something happens, your first priority is the bench area. Make sure that's not a problem. If there's no problem, if everybody's behaving themselves, now, after play is stopped, the official facing the table will get the arrow. Why is that important? We don't want to turn our back to the players. A held ball can be a very volatile situation. And if the official looking toward the table gets the arrow, those players remain in that visual cone of vision. So now I can get my arrow and stay focused on the players and not turn my back. That way we can get that information effectively. Now, once it's determined, whoever ruled the held ball now signals directions and states the color of the team getting the ball, then indicates a throw-in spot. This communication is vital. I'm going to show you an example in a crew of 3. This works the same way in a crew of 2. The lead's going to call a held ball here. Okay? The lead stays focused on the players in his area. Notice the center signals direction. The center is opposite the table. Lead sees that, stays focused on players. The center looks toward the table because he's facing the table. He gets the direction. Now the lead's been communicated with. Now the lead will finish that communication and signal direction. So you basically mirror that direction. This ensures all officials, this has to be a crew of 3, so the trail helps out. All officials stayed calm, the players stayed calm, and we saw everybody in action. We kept everybody in that. This is the wide triangle we talked about. But if there was an altercation, that lead would step forward. In this case, the trail could help out because the center is going to be occupied with staying close. Actually, the trail would make sure the benches didn't get involved, and the center will stay focused on making sure they get the arrow information. So that's just a little example on how to calmly handle a held ball situation. All right, foul procedures. Very similar to the very similar to the violations. This time we're going to stop the clock with a closed fist. That's some of the most important information we can convey, whether it be a palm or a fist. If we've got a double whistle, we now have conveyed some very important information to help resolve that double whistle. Now, make eye contact, very important. Step 2 in every one of our procedures is to make eye contact. Now, if there's a goal involved, if you've made eye contact and you're the only one signaling, you're free to move on to the rest of the procedure. Okay, I've got a foul, and now the ball went through the basket. It's now up to me to immediately signal whether that goal is going to count or I'm going to cancel it. Doesn't matter which, but I'm going to signal right off so let everybody in the gym know this goal counts or it doesn't count. Okay, we don't want to have to raise that anxiety. Then I start my procedure. I'm going to go through and go to the offender. I'm going to have my stop clock signal. I'm going to step toward the player committed the foul. I'm going to communicate the number, the color, and the number of the player who fouled. Most officials don't do this, and most officials can't get help from their partners because they don't do this. I'm going to tell you right now, if you officiate long enough, you'll have a situation where you have a foul in front of you, you know what you got, then between the time that you call the foul and the time you get the scores table, something else happens. You might have a technical foul, you might have an altercation, and you go deal with it. And after you dealt with it, everything calms down. It's all right, who was that foul on? And you forget. Well, if you've communicated, if you've verbalized, you've given everybody in the gym a chance to know who the foul was on, you're less likely to lose it. Your partner might hear it, the coach might hear it, one of the players might hear it, the table might hear it. Someone can help you. So get in that habit of communicating that. Now, the next thing you do is signal the type of foul. This happens to be a hold, and you can verbalize that type of foul. Why is that important? Well, the IAABO co-coordinators talked about this. And if you look through our manuals, whether it be Federation or IAABO, there is no signal for flagrant foul. In those situations when there's a flagrant foul, which means disqualifying a player, we wanted a way to communicate that. So we added verbalization of the type of foul to spot. So I'm going to say hold, hand check, pushing, whatever it might be, because in that off chance I may need to communicate flagrant, I can actually verbalize flagrant foul. So that's why we do that. We make sure we communicate that verbally. Then we signal direction, state the if it's a team control, if it's team control or player control, we have a change of possession. All right, in those situations, we're going to signal the player control with a hand behind the head. Then we're going to signal direction and state the color of the team receiving the ball. So that's in change possession fouls. And lastly, we always end the procedure by indicating the throw-in spot. And again, this year it's vitally important because we have those new spots. Now, let's just say free throws were involved. The procedure is exactly the same, except for instead of indicating a throw-in spot, we're now going to verbalize who's shooting. And this is vital. This is vital. Again, if you officiate a number of years, you lose a shooter. I'm telling you right now, I officiated 37 years. And in those times that I lost a shooter, I look at the players and all the players all of a sudden look exactly the same. They're all 6'2", blonde hair, blue eyes, and you cannot tell the difference. You just named who the shooter was, but now all of a sudden you can't, and it's an awful feeling. But if you get in the habit of verbalizing color and number, both the fouler and who the shooter is, you're going to be able to get help. So make sure you get in that habit of verbalizing. So blue 14, you got 2 shots. You let them know. Because I'll tell you something else. There's some crafty teams out there that know blue 14 is a 27% free throw shooter, and maybe they want blue 10 out there shooting instead. And I'm telling you, because of the way we do our procedures, we often lose sight of that, and they can sneak in free throw shooters that don't belong there. So make sure you're very diligent at the site of foul and get that ready. Now, foul signals. Stop clock, nice and crisp, straight up. No arm, no elbows bent. Make sure you get a closed fist. Bird dog, this is an optional signal, but I'll tell you, it's really handy, especially if you're calling off-ball fouls. We may not who the foul on. All right, if I'm actually signaling at somebody, remember it's nice and relaxed. It's not a weapon. It's not, we don't want to be offensive. Very calmly, just put your arm about waist height. Make sure it's not eye height. You don't want something. You don't want to be antagonistic. Make sure it's about the player's waist. Here's the blocking signal. Just 2 hands on the hips. It isn't banging your hips with a fist. It's just placing 2 hands on the hips. Hand checking. Okay, put your hand on your wrist. Push forward. Hand check. Holding or grabbing your wrist with a clenched fist. Illegal use of hands. A lot of people call it hit. We've actually put that in the manual now in both Federation and IAABO. Okay, don't hurt yourself. All right, no need to hurt yourself, hitting yourself too hard. Just a gentle chop on the forearm. Pushing or charging. Hands out, a little bit different than 10 seconds. 10 seconds is up here. Pushing and charging is probably chest level. Okay. Team control, player control, hand behind the head. And we designed this with a specific reason. We designed this so you stop the clock and place that same hand behind the head. So you're stopping the clock and just dropping that signal behind the head, and then you signal direction using the same arm. All 3 of these signals should be separate. We don't want to see behind the head and signal direction. All 3 have their own chance to shine by themselves. Stop the clock, behind the head, then signal direction. Double foul. This is just clenched fist out to the side. Intentional foul. Make sure you get this up and nice and high over your head. Make sure everybody can see it. Technical foul, very calmly. Like I challenge you to keep composure very calmly. Just put one hand on top of the other in a T shape. And that's the signals. Let's talk about foul reporting. Very important. Okay, you communicated well at the site of the foul. We're basically going to duplicate that at the spot. Our reporting area is about that size right there from free throw line extended free throw lane line toward the front, toward the table. It's about top of the key to top of the key. You want to get to the reporting area, stop and make eye contact with the scorer. Now, a little trick about scoring. If you've ever scored and you see a ball go through the basket, the official scorer's got that pencil right at that number right there. So one of the first things we do, if it's a goal that's involved, you're going to count it or cancel it. That's the first thing we're going to do is let the scorer know does the goal count or cancel. So that's the first thing we're going to do when we get there. If not, the next thing you're going to do, verbalize the color and number of the offender. You're going to verbalize the type of foul. You're going to verbalize how many free throws you're awarding. A very good, very important step because they may have questions like, why are you giving 2 shots or 3 shots? Why are you doing that? The ball went in. Wait a minute. What are you doing? It's a good catch-all to make sure you're communicating and that kind of thing. Now, your table report. You talked a little bit about this a few minutes ago before we started. I know you and Jeff were talking about this. Ensure your numbers are shoulder width apart, okay? You don't want them in front of your face. Get them shoulder width apart, okay? Get them up there. Place your hands like kind of like they're in a glass box, right there on display. Fingers up, straight and spread. Don't block your face by tilting your head. If you're short, it's okay to raise them up a little bit. If you're tall, it's okay to lower them down a little bit. Remember, that score is probably about chest level to you. They're sitting down, so make sure that it's convenient for them and make sure they can see them. So that's just some real helpful hints to make sure you get that table done effectively. I've officiated a long time, and one of the worst feelings you can have is go to a table report, you go back to your position, and you hear that horn. If they don't have that information correctly, you got to go back. It's embarrassing. So take your time, stop, verbalize well. We're not asking a lot, just a strong voice and communicate with confidence. It's all you got to do and put those fingers up effectively. Now, the question you got to ask yourself, what does your demeanor say about the ruling you just made based on how you communicated with the table? Do you convey confidence? Do you convey poise, strength, believability? Are you credible? Or are you deer in headlights? Or am I not confident? I'm kind of sheepishly going to the scorer's table like, yeah, I'm not sure about that one. Get in the habit of conveying confidence every time, regardless. You're on stage. Communicate with effectiveness every single time. Make that a habit, regardless of how you feel about it up here. You've made a decision. Get there and communicate effectively. Now, do I maintain that poise from the side of the foul to the table? We're going to hustle to and from. We want this to be a carbon copy every foul. Hustle to and from, complete stop, strong voice, clear and concise report. We don't need to recite War and Peace. You're going to say color, number, type. White, 42, hold, 12 shoots. You don't need to say, the foul's on 12. He was holding them in the low post. We don't need all the extra verbiage. Just basically clear and concise report. We'll get there, make sure it's effective, and then get back to your position. Let's talk a little bit about dead ball efficiency. Believe it or not, some of the biggest mistakes you'll ever make on a basketball court is while the ball is dead. We lose sight of who the throw-in is going to be. We lose sight of who the free throw is going to be. We lose sight of whose ball is going to be. These things can be unbelievably embarrassing because we lose sight of what's going on. So how do we improve our dead ball efficiency? Okay, the ball becomes dead but following a goal, but even though the clock is running, when the ball is dead, it's essential that all officials remain alive. We want to communicate using proper signals and procedures. This has to be done efficiently. We're not in a rush. We're not in a hurry, but we're going to do anytime there's a foul, violation, a held ball, we're going to communicate efficiently and get the ball back and play efficiently. We're not in a hurry, but we're going to make sure we get one of the best things you can do for a game is keep that ball in play efficiently. The players do much better when they're sweating, when they're in a rhythm. If we're constantly stopping play and taking extra time to get the ball back in play, that impacts their rhythm. So we want to get them in an effective rhythm. Again, don't rush, make sure it's effective. Long dead ball periods, we obviously have to communicate effectively during timeouts. It's not a bad idea for the officials to just communicate with, hey, throwing spots on the sideline, throwing spots in the end line. Hey, White's come out of the timeout, White's got it. It's really good communication to try to make sure that happens. I used to have little tricks in my head. You know, if I was responsible for putting the ball in play, I would point to the floor if I knew it was a designated spot. If I knew it was a move along the end line, I would have a closed fist. Come up with these little techniques that you can make sure. I put a closed fist. I put it on my palm. Someone asked me a question. You know what? I looked down my palm. Okay, this end line. It's an end line throw, and they can move. Have some of those tricks like that to make sure you can do that. Move to appropriate positions during timeout. We don't want to loiter. We don't want to look sloppy out there, but if we have to communicate, by all means do so, but then get to effective timeout positions, look professional, and try not to lose concentration, engage with fans and that kind of thing. Communicate with partners as needed. All right. Be mentally prepared and ensure the following information has been communicated. Know whose timeout it is. Okay. Who just requested that timeout? Where the throwing spot's going to be. Are there substitutes? We have officials that are designated to be in front of that scorer's table and make sure the substitutes. We don't need to beckon during that dead ball period, but we should be observing and making sure they're effective. Where and how will the play be being used? Are the free throws? And by whom? Who's our shooter? This is where crafty coaches and teams sometimes slip in the 72% free throw shooter in place of the 27. Make sure I know white 12's my shooter. Okay. Is it a throw in? Make sure we communicate what kind of throw in it is. Is it alternating possession? Is it designated spot, or is it a move along the end line? All right, let's talk about approach to signaling. Okay, signals are the officiating language, and I cannot impress upon you, make sure you are effective when you want to communicate between officials, whether it be the scorer and the timer, whether it's players and coaches, or whether it is spectators and media. If you don't communicate well, if people don't know what you have, that's going to create frustration. They're going to be frustrated with you, and they're going to think you're a poor official just for this one factor. If you got clear, crisp signals, you're going to avoid that kind of thing. We want to make sure we use only approved signals. Don't make up your own stuff. We want to make sure we understand that we're part of a team, and we convey that being part of a team by using uniform signals. Make sure they're dignified, informative, and consistent, and make sure you clearly and execute precisely what those signals are. Use the mirror, get in front of them, make a real effort. I'm telling you, I travel around the state of Maine. In fact, I've traveled to many other states, and I'm always impressed by people who have taken the time to be diligent and precise with their signaling. You stick out like a sore thumb. And you want to know what? My impression of you is if you're that precise with your signals, you're that precise with your rules knowledge, you're that precise with your procedures, and you're that precise with your preparation. It conveys a real higher level of integrity for what you're doing as on a basketball court. Okay? Make sure your signals are poised and unhurried. Signaling is not a time to bring attention to yourself. You're going to get plenty of attention by blowing the whistle. You blew the whistle, everybody in the gym looks at you. That's enough attention you need. Don't be bringing attention with flamboyant signals and all those kind of things. Be poised and make sure you're professional. All right, let's think about the 3 Ds. All right, there are 3 keys to effective signaling. It's understanding the details, it's understanding the delivery, and it's understanding your demeanor. Let's talk about those 3. All right, details. Master the 3 ways to put the ball in play. We just talked about those procedures. Make sure you understand how to effectively put the ball in play accurately every single time. Master how to stop play. We just talked about that a minute ago. Make sure every one of those procedures is mastered. Use only approved signals. Okay, everybody has a manual, a federation manual, and the IAABO manual are almost carbon copies of one another as far as the signals are concerned. And the thing I love about the federation manual, something the IAABO adopted this year, is they have written verbiage next to every signal on how to do it. What I just showed you a minute ago is right in the manual, so step by step how to accomplish those signals. Master dead ball efficiency. I cannot impress upon you enough that this is time that we've got to be effective and know how we're going to resume play. Master coach and player communication, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Let's talk about delivery. Use a clear, firm, and calm voice. Speak loud enough to be heard, but controlled enough to avoid sounding harsh. We're not trying to be authoritative in a sense where we're trying to dictate. What we're doing is communicating effectively and communicating confidently. Be concise and direct. Communicate with efficiency. Players in communications, they need to be led. They need to know that you're in charge. They need to have confidence in you. Try to project that. They don't need a speech. From the coaches I've talked to, we don't like it when we start coaching their kids, but they need to be led effectively and make sure they know how to resume play. Use consistent terminology. My advice to you is know your audience. If I'm dealing with a 15, 16-year-old kid He may not know what some of the terminology is in our rules. So if you have to use language to make them understand what a ruling is, by all means do that. You can use rule book terminology, but if you're picking up on the fact that you're talking about some kind of technical rule book thing and they don't understand it, by all means, make sure you communicate to your audience. Make sure they understand. So modify if it need be. Uh, always keep your composure 100% of the time. From the moment you enter the gym to the moment you leave, you need to be calm and confident 100% of the time. The minute you lose your composure, your tone of voice changes, and what you convey, you've lost as an official some very important integrity. We know going in it's going to be a challenging environment. We know we're going to get criticized. We know people are going to complain. We expect it. We understand it. We prepare for it. We're officials that are trained. Make sure that composure will go a long way in keeping the game going forward in an effective manner. If you lose your composure, sometimes it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. But if you lose your composure, you're putting gasoline on fire. If you keep that composure, sometimes you can de-escalate by your demeanor, by your tone of voice. I hear what you're saying, coach. I hear what you're saying, young man or young woman, whoever it is. And just, we've got this under control. I hear what you're saying. And move the game effectively by a calm voice. Demeanor, body language, so important. One of the first things I look for in officials, I like to observe games. I like to watch them as they walk on the gym. I like to watch them walk on the court and see what they're conveying. Are they confident? Do they say I belong here? Or are they arrogant? Are they aloof? Are they not paying attention? Are they so cool that they forget that they got a job to do? Convey confidence. Your body speaks long before your whistle does. Okay? Show confidence, but not arrogance. We don't need to be talking down to people. We don't need to do that. Carry yourself professionally. Be approachable. There is nothing that conveys confidence more than being prepared to answer questions effectively. If you're afraid to answer questions or you're standoffish, that conveys to them that you can't handle a very important aspect of the game, especially with coaches. Coaches need to be heard. If you don't listen and you can't effectively diffuse or at least say, I'm hearing what you're saying, coach, you're going to have some more issues. That's going to raise their temperature. It's going to raise that interaction, and you don't want to get to that point. Try to make sure you're approachable and answer effectively. Poise can have a calming effect on the game. And one of my favorite sayings is be a thermostat, not a thermometer. Okay. You set your thermostat right at a comfortable 65 degrees and you stay there the entire game. The thermometer is measuring where the temperature of the game is. Your poise is going to bring us back down. Your poise is going to keep us calm, going to keep us in the right level. So remember that term, be a thermostat, not a thermometer. Mirror work cannot impress upon you enough. Get in front of the mirror and practice all those procedures we just talked about. Whether it be set of violations, set of fouls, held ball, stopping the clock, make sure it's clear and crisp. Work on all those preliminary signals, proper verbalization. Practice that, and then duplicate that at the table when you do the table report. Watch your poise and facial expression. Evaluate yourself. What's your posture and facial expression saying? Your shoulders up. You should convey from a very confident, natural expression. Look calm and confident, not tense and timid. Focus on sharp, accurate signals. Pick yourself apart. Compare. I mean, get a videotape. We all have. I see all you guys now. All you young people have these little phones now with all these selfies, and you're in the mirror. Put those things up on a tripod. Evaluate your own signals and then compare it to the manual and see how accurate you are, and work on your flaws. All right. Record yourself. Like talked about, repetition builds muscle memory. I cannot impress upon you enough that if you do this enough, it becomes second nature. You don't even have to think about it. I know the first few years I officiated, after about 5 years of officiating, after I got some of my procedures down, you know what? I realized there was a basketball game going on. Part of my brain wasn't focused on how to do the procedure right. It wasn't focused on the signal. I actually invested more of my energy on actually officiating the game. You actually see some things you didn't see before. So get that to be second habit. All right. If you can't do it smoothly in your bathroom mirror, you probably won't do it smoothly on the court. So keep that in mind. If you get that repetition, you can get that down. Let's talk about some video review. Here's some plays. Here's a side of the foul procedure. when you compare this to what we just talked about, we got to stop the clock signal, and then they just cut a little table. I don't know if the foul's on, who the foul's on. There's two players that this player drove by. There was a kid beats the primary defender, little contact here, and then more contact here. Which player fouled? You wouldn't know which player is getting communicated with. So make sure you understand that color, number, site of foul. The other thing we don't want to do, we don't want to walk through the players to the table. If you have a chance to rule a foul, go around the players, go around the lane, take the long way if you have to. Get around the players. That way you can observe more. You saw the reporting area a little while ago. Use the outside edges of those reporting areas as best you can. Keeps you away from the table. Most of the time, especially in a crew of three, you're going to be rotating away from the table after the foul. So it keeps you away from the scorer's table. All right. Site of foul procedure here. Let's take a look at that. Very calm, very composed. That's a pretty good looking signal. Let's take a look at that again. Stop the clock, bird dog, illegal use, and they're going to award 2 free throws. Now, hopefully they're verbalizing the color and the number of both the fouler and who the shooter is. Pretty good example of site of foul procedures. Let's take a look at this one. Here's a problem. Here's something we really need to talk about. First and foremost, we got a double whistle. And then both official signals. If you look closely, you got the lead with the blocking foul, and you get the center with the player control foul. Now, if you've been officiating long enough, you know when this happens, you just made both teams very, very unhappy, because the only resolution to a situation like this with both officials have communicated is now we got to go to the double foul. So both teams are going to be charged with a foul in this play, which is unfortunate. So really, it's important to know your primary coverage areas and to know who's primary responsible and drives to the basket. This is a pregame situation. Secondly, once you've decided to rule a foul, we emphasize this tonight, eye contact. All I do is my preliminary. I got a stop clock. Oh, look at that. The lead has a foul too. Okay, I have a choice. I know from my procedures that plays in the lane going to the basket like that, the lead has that entire lane, especially on secondary defenders. So I have a choice. If I think I have something I need to convey them, I'll come do it. Otherwise, I'm going to drop knowing that they're primarily responsible for that play. That avoids the situation we have conflicting signals. Very important concept. Try to avoid those. The layman term is the blarge. What it actually is a double foul. Now, let's just say, for example, both these officials stop play. All they do is stop clock. Let's say they did disagree. No one in the gym has to know that. If they've got to get together and the lead has a block and the center has a player control, they can talk about that. They can get together. Say, I had player control. You know what? We didn't signal. You know what, Joe? I want to defer to you on this one. You had a better angle. Go for it. Now we're just conveying one signal. That avoids that double foul situation. That's why it's so important to stop the clock and then make eye contact. You can avoid that situation. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Another tough play. Drive to the basket, got a crash, and we go behind the head. Here's another situation, another crash. Really a good punch. All right, another situation. Here's a point. All of these signaling of these plays are not accurate. Okay, we don't signal both behind the head and a direction at the same time. We don't signal with a punch. That went out a couple years ago. This lady needed rotator cuff surgery. And then we got this one here. It's just a point. What you do is stop the clock. You step toward the offending player, state color and number, then calmly place the hand behind the head, and then signal direction. That's what we want in those player control, team control foul situations. All right, here's a very good situation. Here's how to signal a player control foul. Notice the lead, stop the clock, behind the head, direction, then indicate the spot. Excellent. That's a Norman Rockwell painting of how to signal a player control foul. How closely do you resemble this official in this play? Notice the poise. It's not a big deal. All it is a player control foul. Kid gets run over, stop the clock, behind the head, signal, and then indicate the spot. So think about your officiating and how close you resemble that. All right, let's end this up by communication with players and coaches. Here's something that's going to make or break your officiating. You're going to work hard. You're going to know your rules. You're going to apply them accurately. You're going to get your signals right, your procedure all down. And here's how you're going to communicate. I want you to think of every player you communicate with this season. I want you to think about this player that's asking a question right now. I want you to think about that player as a future basketball official. Treat them with respect. Be so good at what you do that they're inspired to say, you know what? When I get older, I want to be a basketball official too. People love our game. There are some special people that get into our game as coaches. They know the game to that level. But for a lot of us, really the best way to stay connected to the game of basketball is through officiating. You get to stay in shape. You get to stay around the game you love, and you get to be part of student athlete's career, which is great. So communicate. The first thing you can do is listen to them. Okay. Don't be defensive. Make sure you understand these are 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. They're probably emotional. They're probably not fully mature yet. So a lot of them aren't going to communicate effectively. That doesn't mean you're going to lose your composure, but you're going to listen to what they have to say and you're going to diffuse it. I hear what you're saying, 12. I hear what you think. I'll take a look for it. Even if you think they're wrong, if you treat them with respect, convey the fact that you've listened to them, and tell them that you're going to try to make sure we look for what they've asked for, you're going to earn a lot of respect from those people. All right. Reinforce fairness. I can't convey that enough that, hey, I hear what you're saying, but there's this other side of that coin. You can convey what's going on out there, what you're seeing. There's never a problem. Say, yeah, I saw that play and here's what I had. One of the best things you can do as an official is get those conversations to why you had what you had. People can't argue with that. They can argue with the ruling, but if you convey why you did what you did, you're going to earn a lot of credibility. All right. Especially when you get to coaches. Okay. Again, acknowledge, don't ignore. If you ignore, you're asking for the temperature to be raised. They're going to get louder and louder and louder until they get your attention. Now, we don't want you taking the whistle out of your mouth to talk to them, but during dead ball situations, or you can just convey, hey, I hear what you're saying. That's perfect. This communication can be verbal or nonverbal. Make sure you keep the whistle in the mouth if you need to. I've seen this so many times where I try to take the whistle in the mouth and give some quick explanation and you miss something else. That's something we don't want. So try to choose your spots. Look for those dead ball situations to try to communicate. Do not allow coaches to affect your focus. Be stubborn about your focus. Okay, I hear what that coach is saying. I'll get to him in a second, but stay focused on the task at hand and communicate effectively when you have the opportunity. Be a good listener. By listening, don't be one of those people that's formulating your response before they get done talking. Fully embrace yourself in what they're saying. Sometimes what they're saying is legit. Okay, especially if you're working on a crew of two. I can almost guarantee you in a crew of two, we're probably missing something out there. And sometimes even a crew of three, we might miss something. Maybe their perspective is biased. I'm pretty sure it is. So maybe what they're saying is slanted, just their view, and that's okay. We understand that with basketball officials, but we can still treat their information with respect. But we'll try to listen first and foremost. Be approachable. Appearing arrogant or aloof or defensive creates barriers. Okay. You're not there to defend what you've done. You're there to convey why you've done what you've done. Very important distinction there. If it's a block charge situation, you guys can argue about block charge all day long. But you say, Coach, this is why I had it. Coach, I had the defender legally, both feet on the floor, facing the opponent. That's what I had, what I had. If you give them that information, they may not agree with your ruling, but they at least understand why you did what you did. Okay, it's a huge difference. It's moving from right or wrong to understanding why you had it. They have to respect it. That's what you saw. Okay, there's no debating what you feel like you saw. The ruling can be debated. So get the conversation, Coach. This is why I had it, and that usually diffuses it. And they can disagree with the ruling, but they at least can respect why you did what you did. All right, especially if it's rule based. Make sure, I don't know how big you are or what your demeanor is or your physical. Make sure you have spatial awareness. You don't want to tower over someone. You don't want to get in someone's personal space. Make sure you can just spatial enough awareness to just try to communicate effectively. And you can kind of gauge that by a case-by-case basis. How you far away can be very important to how you communicate. You don't want that to convey the wrong thing. You don't want to try to be intimidating, just be informative. Answer legitimate questions, not statements. What did 12 do wrong in that play? Coach, they dragged their pivot foot. Or, answering a question like, what's it going to take you to foul around here? Okay, that's a rhetorical question. You don't need to engage at that kind of level. Understand sometimes they're expressing frustration. Sometimes that expression is trying to influence you in some other things. You're a trained basketball official. You're prepared for it. You understand it. When they start trying to incite that maybe they're not getting everything other team, you get it. You understand. You're applying the rules accurately. And sometimes applying the rules accurately doesn't mean every team's going to get the same number of fouls or whatever happens. Now, that team's in a full court press, that team's in a zone. That might be a predicating factor why the foul total might not be the same. So you understand it. Try not to answer the rhetorical stuff. It's a no-win situation to try to get in that situation. Acknowledge, try to answer the legitimate questions. Be honest. If you missed a ruling, it's okay to say once a game, say, look, coach, if that's the way you saw it, I missed it. But hopefully these are three things you can always say. Coach, I missed it. Coach, you might be right. Or you know what, I feel pretty good about that one. It doesn't, again, you're not arguing right or wrong. You're saying, yeah, I feel pretty good about that one. All right. All you're doing is conveying confidence what you had. You're not trying to argue the type of foul or whatever it is. Choose words wisely. Never use profanity. Never get personal. Never be derogatory. The great saying is you can't quote silence. You never want to say anything that come back to haunt you. It's amazing to me how you can go to a basketball game. Sometimes coaches and fans and people around you, they lose your composure. They say some of the most heinous things, and they can be totally rude. The minute you step out of line, all of a sudden they become experts on poor behavior, and the next thing you know, you're being reported about poor behavior. And you know what? They're right, because we are trained basketball officials. We're above it. We prepare for it. We understand it, and we never lose our composure. So just try to keep that in mind. Keep your tone unemotional. It's just informative. And if you don't know what to say, especially if you younger officials, I think you guys are 1st or 5-year officials. If you don't know what to say, again, you can't misquote silence. Okay, learn from it. I can't impress upon you enough to try to analyze your personal communications throughout the season. Okay, think about it. How'd they work? Were they effective? Did they improve? If you couldn't think of something to say, think about it later. What could you have said to help the situation? This officiating thing, you'll never master it. You'll be a constant learning. I know I got better at it over the years. I was one of those people, I didn't know what to say most of the time. So I tried to pick my spots the best I could, but I tried to get better at it too. So give yourself a break. You're gonna make mistakes in this realm. Figure out what works, what doesn't work, learn from each experience, and try to get better as you move forward. Okay, so you don't have to say a lot, but the whole goal is to try to say the right thing at the right time. I can't impress upon you enough that you are human. They can never question that. Be human, and try to convey that you're human, doing the best you can. If you're working hard, you'll earn a lot of credibility. And if you're approachable and at least one of those things, if you're just a human being and you're willing to communicate and convey what you're going through, you're going to go a long way. I can't also convey enough. Be brief. We have a lot of coaches that want to disrupt the flow of the game with their interactions. They're strategic. They understand that they can try to disrupt them, especially if you've got a team that's really good and one team is not so good. I've seen time and time again coaches try to disrupt that flow with different breaks and things like that, conversations. Understand that, hey, be brief, give short, precise answers, and get the game moving. One of the best things you do is be efficient, get the ball in play. But know when it's over. If you have a conversation and they're starting to repeat themselves, they're just venting frustration. If you feel like you've adequately listened to what they said and you conveyed that you've listened, one of the things you do is repeat back with it. Yeah, coach, I hear what you're saying. We'll look in the low post. We'll make sure that play looks, hey, we'll take a look at that pivot foot. If you've done that, they keep repeating themselves. Hey, coach, we're going to get the ball back in play. I hear what you're saying. We're going to get the ball back in play now. All right. So keep that in mind. Always end the conversation professionally and move on. If either head coach or any bench personnel act in a manner that is unsporting, but not considered major, we've got a brand new thing for the last 4 or 5 years, behavior warning. It's really effective. All it is, it's just saying, you know what just happened here was not appropriate. We're going to stop play and going to give the bench a behavior. It could be the head coach. It could be anywhere in the bench. And you're going to step toward the coach, say, coach, this is your behavior warning, or it could be Being out of the coaching box. Coach, this is your bench warning for being out of the coaching box. It's not antagonistic, very calm. Coach, we hear what you're saying. Make sure you do your coaching from the coaching box. Make sure you behave appropriately, that kind of thing, and get the ball back in play. It is very important that if you've officially warned a coach, you let your partner or partners know. We don't want to have multiple warnings for the same thing, because the next time that behavior happens, we've really got to penalize. Make sure you let your partners know. Make sure it's recorded in the scorebook. This is an official warning. They're going to write this down. At 2:17 in the second quarter, we had a head coach warning. They're going to put that in the book, because later in the game, if something happens, did we have a warning? Okay, yes, we did. Now we have to assess with a technical foul. So make sure you communicate with that. If unsporting behavior continues, we gotta call a technical foul. Make sure you use good judgment when deciding to use a warning. If the opponents are on a fast break for a layup, and that head coach over there tells you your mother wears army boots, you got to have enough confidence and enough composure to say, wait a minute, I'm going to hold off. I hear what he said. All right, let that play finish, let the scoring play finish, and then I'm going to assess the penalty, whether it be a technical foul or a warning. Make sure you understand that these are very important decisions to make. Plan ahead. Sometimes you can kind of feel those technical fouls coming. Sometimes you can feel these warnings coming. Make sure you stop the game appropriately to issue that warning or it's just a technical foul. Okay? Make sure you don't put the opponents in a disadvantage. And understanding. Now, I learned this from watching my dad a few years ago. Stop and play at an inopportune time, and now you think you've done the right thing, and all of a sudden you set a situation up where that team gets a full court press. You stop the play. The ball was in play. They're moving up the court, and you stop play and issue a warning to that team. The opponents had the ball, and now they could just set up a full court press. Think about that. Think about when you do it. You might want to wait for an actual dead ball before you actually do that. So think through those situations. If the opponents are advancing the ball or scoring plays in progress, that is not the time to issue a warning to the opposing team. In that case, the officials would hold their whistle and, if possible, stop play when the ball is in control or at the disposal of the offending team. Very important concept. Something to think about. If you guys decide to become IAABO members, trust me when I tell you this, you won't be disappointed. We have an IAABO website, tremendous amount of information. We have a members only area, and it is chock full of information like this that you get access to. Presentations, scores cards, pregame cards, all kinds of video situations that you want to learn from. You'll have more information you know what to do with. Don't be afraid to do that. Now, we have a presentation, a full presentation just on coach communication in our IAABO Academy program. It is one of the best presentations I've ever seen on coach and player communication, done by a guy at Massachusetts, really funny guy, a guy named John Rafferty. If you join that and get in that, you will not be disappointed. Wrapping things up, master start and play, master stopping play, use pro signals, understand how important dead ball efficiency is, improve your coach player communication, be critical of yourself, try to be self-reflective, make sure you try to master that, be authentic. Your attitude will go so long. I mean, when you start the game from the time you end, if you're enthusiastic about what you're doing, that will convey to the people out there, and you'll earn a lot of respect for that. So make sure you have a good attitude, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
TJ, that was absolutely outstanding.
Appreciate it.
Saw again. I've seen the video of you doing that, and that was actually very well stated. Let's go through a couple questions, and if I don't get to your question, please raise the issue. I think someone asked a question about the coaching box. Maybe if you could show that. I mean, I'm sorry, not the coaching box. The reporting area. If you could show that real quick, I think maybe somebody didn't see it correctly. It basically inside the 3-point lines, away from the table. The point of that, guys, is so guys and gals, so that you are not right next to the table.
Yep.
And not like, because basically, if you're closer to the table you are, the more likely you can be interceded by the coach.
Mm-hmm.
Someone did ask about the coaching box, just so you know, in high school, the coaching boxes from in Illinois too, the high school coaching boxes from the end line to the 28-foot mark. Other levels have a bigger box. Some the college has 38, the NBA has 38 feet. They also have a bigger court, so they got a larger box. So cannot use that as our gauge for the high school. Someone asked about a delayed whistle if the offense is able to score. I want to make that clear. If we're talking about a foul or a violation that takes place, and maybe TJ, you can touch on this. If we have a foul or violation that is obvious, that needs to be called. We don't wait until the offense to score unless it's marginal in nature. Maybe that's a whole other issue. But if we have a foul or violation, we got to call a foul or violation.
Yep.
That you agree with that, TJ? Or
Yep.
anything to that? But there is a higher level thinking about not calling certain kind of fouls, meaning marginal, that don't affect play. But that's not what we're talking about. But we can get into that later. I think that was all of it. Oh, who's primary call in a 3-person crew? I'm assuming that question was about the block charge that TJ showed.
Yep.
In Illinois and most of the country, the lead takes the block charge plays secondary defenders in the lane. But if there is not a whistle from the lead and you know it's a foul as an outside official, you do have the right to come in with what we call a cadence whistle and call that foul or violation. And it's also sometimes about angle. But what we don't want to have is our outside officials having what we call a primary whistle. So the point of contact, and you're immediately on it instead of kind of waiting and giving your partner a chance, because there are situations they don't see it. So you might have to come and get it, just be a little more delayed, half a second, maybe a second before you have a whistle, especially if there's an obvious contact. I think that's all that I saw.
Somebody has a question. They said, what do we do about gyms that still have the old coach's box?
By rule, and this is a state Illinois procedure, maybe Gary can talk about this a little bit. If they have the old coach's box, first off, the old coach's box was 6 feet. Usually it's from the 28-foot mark to most of the time. If that is only listed, then they still get the end line. You don't have to remark the box. Now, by rule, if they do not have a marked coach's box, in Illinois, our procedure is that they're not supposed to have it. But I'm going to say in best practice, you are going to make sure that you go from a 28-foot mark and go to the end line. Have one marked down, if nothing else, to make that be known. Again, you're not measuring yourself. You're just kind of using a 28-foot mark. Usually the end of the benches in most cases are kind of a gauge. But again, use your best judgment. But we want to do everything to make sure that they're using the coach's box. Okay, I said if a defensive player accidentally scores in the opponent's basket, is it a violation? That depends. If the teams are mixed up and we have not recognized it, all points are scored. There's some case plays about that. We switch them and make them go the wrong way. If we know they're going the right way and the player does it on the wrong basket, then it would count. But make sure that you give the teams that did not score the basket, meaning if the defensive, they're going to get the ball back on the end line and then they get to run. But that's a good question. But I can answer more of that. There's a whole case book in that. I think that's everything I saw so far.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much it.
Awesome.
TJ, can you do me a favor and just touch on RefQuest and how
Sure.
that can benefit the officials'
yes.
training and knowledge?
Well, you guys have been spoiled by Jeff Rutledge for years as far as video. I mean, you guys are way ahead of the curve as far as video. RefQuest is very similar to what he does with his officiating born program. Basically, what we do is during the season we post 3 plays a week. One probably like Monday, Wednesday, Friday type of thing. During the off season, we post 2 plays a week, usually like Sunday and Thursday, that kind of thing, Sunday, Wednesday. And what it does, it just poses a question, puts it in front of you, and says, "All right, here's a play. Tell us what you think the ruling is." And oftentimes we're looking at was the site of foul procedure right? The site of violation procedure right? Were the signals correct? So it's kind of like you tell us, what do you think the best thing is? And then you respond and you say, all right, I think that's blocking foul. I think it's a charging foul. I don't think the signals are right. I think the signal, and then you post it on a ref quest and you post your comments. And then about 24 to 48 hours after that clip is posted, you actually get a play summary telling you exactly what the accurate answer should be. And to me, I kind of approach it kind of like the Supreme Court. You know, if you ever seen a Supreme Court ruling, you've got a majority opinion and a minority opinion. A lot of times the camera angle from the clip is really hard. And a lot of times the camera angle is not as good as the ruling official on the court. So I give a lot of benefit of the doubt to the people on the court. And I just say, all right, if this is what you saw, this is how to handle the ruling. My whole goal is to teach you how to apply the rules effectively. And so I want you to understand what rule. If you tell me, oh, I think it's a blocking foul because the defensive player is moving, I've got a problem with that because defensive players can move to play defense. If you say, I think I have a blocking foul because they were moving into the offensive player and caused contact, I'm fine because that's rules based. So we're looking to have rules based logic, and we've had a tremendous response to it. We had about 5,500 members on that program. We averaged in the off season about 1,000 to 1,500 views on every one of our clips. And it's been just a wonderful thing to see so many people get involved in these plays and learn from it and develop a consensus on how to apply the rules, how to apply the rules, mechanics, procedures effectively. I run the program. I put all the play summaries together. Basically what I do is I have 3 or 4 different co-coordinators. They post their answers. I try to bring those answers together and put a play summary together. All it is an educational tool and try to help improve officials. It's been very well received over the years.
And let me
TJ,
say,
the other
guys,
day I was in there, I was
sorry.
in
Go ahead, Gary.
RefQuest, or tried to be in RefQuest. And I put in my login information and everything, and it replied back to me that I would not be able to get in it for about a week. Is that
Huh.
common?
Wow. Okay. I can ask Donnie. That's not typical. No.
Yeah, I put all my login information in, tried to get in it, and that was the reply that I got. So,
That's weird. Okay. That's not typical.
okay,
Oh,
I wanted to
Well,
bring it to your attention.
that
So,
should be instantaneous.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this, guys. The RefQuest piece is probably worth the $35 alone.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that is because when Gary, TJ, and all, Clarence, probably when we all started, we had VHS tape, and it was
Yep.
very hard to get video.
wait a minute.
Now you can see a
Yeah.
situation 10 different times on video and maybe never experienced it. And once you get on that court and then that happens, you actually have a library in your head of exactly what to do, or at
Yeah.
least you know how to communicate what you have called. The
Sure.
RefQuest piece is very big. And I'm not talking about just, technical files and, unusual situations. I'm talking about just a travel and just, some basic files. If you see that video a bunch of times, you will get good at what you're doing. And even if you're not seeing it from their angle, you at least kind of know what you're looking for. It's one of the things that TJ said, which I always say to people, especially for the younger people, and you don't all have to answer at once, but how many of y'all play video games? Probably a lot of you. Okay. I know I play video games. I've been playing since I was a kid and I'm in my early 50s. I say that because officiating and your signals are very similar to your video game playing. Because if you have a video game system like I have right now in front of me, you are not looking down and giving your pushing the button. You don't press X or square or circle based off of you looking at it. You actually know where those are. Your signals are the same thing, the same exact process. Your knowledge of the signals have to be practiced over and over and over and over and over again for you to get really good at them so that certain things become a habit. One of the things I do, and the reason I love what TJ talked about with practicing in the mirror, I will walk to the car and I will give my 5-second count. And it looks so silly. in person if you ever see me. And I usually not looking around with a bunch of people are watching me, but I literally do that. And I will sometimes report as I'm walking to the car. I will do all kinds of stuff because I want this to be muscle memory, where this is something that I do every single time. And when I get on that court, when my mind is racing, that is actually, I am calm with the other things that are going on to communicate. That is something that you need to get good at really well. Because if you give signals, and matter of fact, I think next week I'm going to talk a little bit about some tips to get you good as an official or some things I've learned over the years. This is one of them that you need to get in the mirror and go over your signals, because the better, and I've heard this from the most well-known officials in the country to some of the least known at the local level that have said the same thing. You have to get in a practice habit, because calling the game is one thing, but you got to look a certain way once we make calls and once we signal things. So I hope that helps.
Hey, Bryce, I'm sorry. TJ, there's one question in the chat. It says, after the first technical foul, is it an auto ejection for a coach if that coach stands again, if the first tech is a direct towards the head coach?
Yes, it is. They get two. The second one's flagrant.
Yes.
Yep.
They get a second technical, but this is where the communication comes into play, guys. You must communicate to the coach what their responsibility is after the first technical. They may not be aware of their processes, but and believe it or not, you might think all coaches know this. A lot of them don't. They come from other levels. Sometimes there's college coaches who come to the high school level. They don't know what they do when they get a technical. So someone has to communicate at some point. Hey, coach, now you have to sit, or now you lost the coach's box, and do it in a professional manner, but give that. It's not automatic. But if they continue to not follow the rules, then you have tools to take care of that. And if you've given them a T, you're not giving them a warning, by the way. Any other questions?
That's pretty much it. Thank you, TJ.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks,
I wish you
TJ.
guys well.
Thank you. See you.
Thank
Stay
you.
Thank you,
safe.
folks.
Thanks, TJ. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. I'll
Yeah.
follow up with you, Gary. I'll follow up on that ref quest question.
I appreciate that. And I'll also look again tonight when we get off.
All right. See you guys.
Good
Now,
night,
guys,
everybody.
if you